Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
So last month, a purse bid between European champion CALLUM Simpson and French super middleweight Kevin Saggio was met with a bid from Europrom, a measly €15,000. This was for CALLUM Simpson's 168-pound European title. I was told by somebody in the comment section that I want Ben Shalom to fail. Although when Eddie Hearn was outbid by Sabriel Matthias, even though I realized I made a mistake after, that he couldn't bid too much for the fight because the champion Matthias will get 70%. Dalton Smith, Makram, the challenger, gets 30%. I had a lot to say about how Makram screwed up, but people are very convenient in what they want to hear from what they don't. So yes, 15k, which CALLUM Simpson is not going to take. Ben Shalom didn't bid. And now we're hearing the purse bids between boxers Chris Billiam Smith and Roman Fres for the interim WBO title have been declared deserted as no promoter bid on the fight. Am I still hoping that Ben Shalom fails? Or is there a catalogue of shit with this guy nearly every flipping week? So I believe it was a 300,000 minimum bid for Chris Billiam Smith versus Fres. Now we know he hasn't got a lot of fight dates over there at the BBC. And you could argue, well, what's he supposed to do if he hasn't got the fight dates? But are Chris Billiam Smith and CALLUM Simpson happy being kept out of significant fights? Inactive?
You abandoned me.
Chris Billiam Smith was talking about he's not going to accept no less than $1 million to fight Jaya Pattaya. Son, no one's interested in your fights. No one. They've had to reduce the purse bid from 300,000 to 150,000. Chris is talking about he wants $1 million to fight Jaya Pattaya.
Crazy!
Has Chris been looking for a new promoter since he found out Ben's only got 4 dates a year? Look at Bob Arum. He's outsourcing Guido Vianello to fight Alexis Barreri. So that's going to be Makram versus Top Rank on the Boots Ennis card tonight. Have you seen Ben outsource any of his inactive fighters? Put them on a Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn card and tell them, look, while we're sorting for our current position where we don't have many dates, we'll put you on this card. You can fight on Queensbury, you can fight on Makram to stop his fighters being inactive and ruining their careers.
I'm not sure Ben Shalom's very relevant anymore, to be honest, but
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
We have a tremendous roster, and in the US, that's the market where we're going to double down more than anything moving forward in 2026. We have, in my opinion, such a strong position. A lot of these big promotional companies out there, they don't have a TV deal. We do, and we have a solid deal with a big bankroll to go and make the biggest fights in the sport. 2026, we've got to make it count, and we will be making it count in America.
Eddie Hearn has been pounding away on the American circuit for at least 8 years. His first significant player was Danny Jacobs, and he's still at it. Jaron Ennis debuts at 154 in Philly against UISMA Lima a few hours from now. And he's been talking Boots Ennis up this week, talking about he's the next pound for pound great. No one is even 50-50 at 154 against Boots.
Like, if you think that Virgil Ortiz will beat Jaron Ennis, then you don't know shit about boxing.
Eddie, right? That was my next question.
If you think that Murtsalayev beats Jaron Ennis, you don't know shit about boxing. If you think Sebastian Fundora beats Jaron Boots Ennis, you don't know shit about boxing. The only fighter between 154 pounds and 168 pounds that I can't categorically sit here and tell you Jaron beats is Terence Crawford. And I still think he beats him.
Boots better perform tomorrow, that's all I can say. But look, with Bob Arum still fumbling around for a broadcasting platform for Top Rank, with Don King apparently putting out cease and desist letters to prevent his fighters going on more lucrative platforms to get paid, when he himself can't get them no meaningful fights. Al Heyman losing the likes of Tank Davis if he sticks to his retirement. I doubt he will. With David Benavidez asserting that his time on the PBC is done. This is a good time to increase the pressure to corner the American market. Or is it?
Certainly, there's no arguing that boxing is in any place but the toilet in the United States. Beyond argument.
It's the homegrown.
With the likes of Fury, AJ, Anthony Yard, Callum Smith, Nick Bizzle, Joshua Boatzy fighting on Riyadh. A lot of people say that the British domestic scene has been depleted because rather than Boatzy and Callum Smith headline at the O2 in London, they're on the undercard of Beterbiev and Bivol in Riyadh. What a lot of people are saying is we need our homegrown fighters fighting over here so the prospects can be on the undercards and develop their profile. Some people say it's destroying boxing, but it's not up to Callum Smith and Joshua Boatzy to save the infrastructure and the business of boxing. That's down to the people who wear suits, promoters, the board, and in my opinion, maybe the government. It's not up to the boxers. Boxers have bailed on the UK from the 19th century. Our best boxers, Ted Kid Lewis, Freddie Welsh, because there was more money in America. Right now, the money's in Riyadh. But Eddie has recently spoke. There's going to be new signings across the pond. He's made his intentions known. He won't be attending Dave Allen versus MAKHMUDOV. He'll be attending the event in Philly with Boots takes on Limas. Is Eddie abandoning the UK? Well, I think Eddie believes that if there is anything to salvage from the UK market, that Frank Smith and other members of the Matchroom staff can handle that. Apparently, Frank Smith was pivotal in the signing of Ben Whittaker.
Frank was the driving force behind that signing, and he was hell-bent on getting him. Maybe for a little bit of emotional reasons. I'm past all that.
I think Eddie feels like been there, done that in the UK, done the stadium fight, done the big pay-per-view numbers. So now he wants to etch his name in stone across the pond. He hasn't done too bad over there. Promoted fights with Canelo, Shakur, made Boots a unified champion. Of course, AJ lost at the MSG. Mikey Garcia, Golovkin, Ray Ford, Devin Haney, Bam Rodriguez. And I think if we're looking at DAZN and their relationship with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, Frank Warren right now, he's doing a lot of the pay-per-views over here, mostly with that heavyweight roster. Between Eddie, DAZN and Frank, there might not be a need for Eddie to really put his focus in the British market. Obviously, they're not going to neglect it. But with Frank Warren there, it probably frees Eddie up a little more to go pursue that American dream. And I think that's what DAZN want too. When Frank got on DAZN, he did speak about doing shows in America. But Frank's in his 70s. I don't think Frank wants to be stamping his passport going across the pond and back to the UK to put on cards like that. If Queensberry do start making inroads to other markets, not just America, it's going to be George and Francis doing the legwork in terms of getting on planes. I like what Frank's doing in Scotland. That card last week was pretty good. Under the radar, pretty good card with Nathaniel Collins headlining. It was Frank promoting the likes of Ricky Burns, Scott Hardison, and Alex Arthur very early into the millennium in Scotland. Recently, he signed Josh Taylor, who lost to Echo Esserman in an upset. Josh, eye injuries, has had to retire, but Frank's kept the momentum going. And the Scots will have a very fruitful territory. Trust me on that. Their fans will turn up and they support. There's lots of work for Matchroom to do across there with Golden Boy. They're all under the same umbrella there at DAZN. Hearn spoke about the big budget he has. DAZN are backing him, and no doubt the deals he done with Turki Al Sheikh involving the darts and snooker market has put the battery in Eddie Hearn's back. The back and forth with Dana White, I don't know if it's choreographed. I really don't, because TKO, looking at their guidelines and their purse structure, they're not working with the sanctioning bodies, are not going after Eddie Hearn's market, and vice versa. But it's something the press will latch on to. And if they can get any mileage out of the two going back and forth, it is what it is. And he's being opportunistic, knowing that the hate in the boxing world and the MMA world for Dana is stronger than the hate that Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, Leonard Ellaby, Lou DiBella, and a lot of the American media had for him. They hate Dana even worse. So they don't have no problems with Eddie bombing on Dana. They have no issues with that. In fact, they may even back Eddie over Dana. Besides, a lot of Eddie's enemies, Oscar, still going, still promoting on DAZN. Leonard Ellaby, where's he? Bob Arum, very old, struggling to put this new platform together for Top Rank. Steven Espinoza. To be honest, they're all looking a little like beaten dogs. I don't think they got the stomach to fight Eddie no more. And even if they did, I don't think Hearn would give up. Although the American market is probably fed up of paying $80 for pay-per-views that don't warrant that type of pricing. Eddie has to offer the market something different that the old guard was offering. You know, he's definitely trying to exploit a void in that market. Because if this was the 90s and 80s, when Don and Bob were smashing the game, the Duvas, don't forget the Duvas, they're often forgotten, but they were just as big as King and Arum. When Tuesday Night Fights was on with Sean O'Grady, I don't think the Hearns would attempt to fuck with the American market. At least not with the view that they're going to dominate and take it over.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
2013 is not a long time back if we're talking about boxing history. It's just the other day. Battle of Unbeatens. Mike Perez was 19-0. His Russian opponent, Magomed ABDUSALAMOV, had 18 wins, no losses, no draws, all 18 inside the distance. I remember watching Magomed ABDUSALAMOV destroy Jamil McLean and thinking this guy could really be a handful at heavyweight. Now, I believe ABDUSALAMOV went in as the favourite. Both men went toe-to-toe, landing brutal shots on the other. Definitely one of the fights of the year. The Cuban won a unanimous 10-round decision. Perez was hurt on a few occasions, but he showed a great chin. ABDUSALAMOV absorbed a lot of punishment. By the end of the fight, ABDUSALAMOV's face was a mess, swollen, had a cut over his left eye. ABDUSALAMOV said he hurt his hand in the first round and it was a problem for him throughout the fight. An all-action fight was marred when ABDUSALAMOV suffered severe brain damage, paralyzed, unable to speak, leading to lawsuits against the ringside doctors and the New York State Athletic Commission. The case highlights issues of inadequate post-fight medical care, as doctors reportedly cleared ABDUSALAMOV despite his complaints of pain and other signs of injury, and he was not immediately transported to a hospital. Do you think that would have happened to him in the UK on a Queensbury card or a Matchroom card? And I'm not here to big up the UK. And I ain't talking now, I'm talking back in 2013. Would that have happened to ABDUSALAMOV on a Frank Warren card, on an Eddie Hearn card? The answer is unequivocally no. Because British boxing did go through reform in terms of health and safety. In 1991, after Michael Watson suffered a severe brain injury in his rematch with Chris Eubanks Sr., Watson won a lawsuit, and the British Boxing Board of Control were forced to go through stringent reform that almost left them bankrupt. But I didn't hear anything about the New York State Athletic Commission or any of the other states across the pond having to go through reform because of this particular case. And the question is why? The corner probably should have pulled him out before the start of round 9. But it looks like Magomed is fighting back as best he can. They've got him in rehabilitation, pumping iron, still unable to talk, but there's still life in the old fighter yet. Mike Perez, he went through alcoholism, depression, but he bounced back. I think he's still fighting today.
I know Frank's my promoter, but also Frank looks after everyone else. Danny Dubois is fighting for what? IBF Eliminator. Is that true?
Yeah, well, Frank Sanchez in an IBF Eliminator.
So he went from like one of the fights, then he sort of lost, but then he went and fought for WBA. Then like he's getting all these opportunities because Frank loves Dubois. Frank loves him, and fair enough because he's the one that's helped him, throughout his career and brought him up and Frank loves Tyson. Frank, we work together, and I don't think he has the same love that he has for other fighters, you know. I'm from New Zealand. I'm not meant to be on the circuit of heavyweight boxing.
Joe don't sound happy. He put that out there because he knows he's going to get back to Frank, and he's not happy. Joseph fights Fabio Wardley in London, October the 25th. Is Frank prioritizing the likes of Tyson Fury, the likes of Daniel Dubois? Like he's saying, Daniel is in this IBF eliminator against Frank Sanchez after losing to Usyk not too long ago. Daniel withdrew 1 week out from defending his IBF title against Joseph Parker in February, claiming a viral infection. The IBF title shot was gifted to AJ and Dubois when Usyk was either stripped or vacated the belt. 90,000+ at Wembley, 2 London boys promoted by 2, let's say, London promoters. Eddie's from Essex, London, Essex. Same thing, really. Any coincidence? Joe Joyce may be asking himself the same thing, although he is a Londoner. But Dubois was definitely prioritized over Joe when Joe was getting his head kicked in by Zhang, and before that, he beat Joseph Parker. He beat Daniel Dubois. Frank is normally good at protecting his fighters in that type of position until they get a title shot. Look what's happened to Joe's career. It's not all Frank's fault, but Daniel was prioritized over Joe. Uncle Frank looking after Daniel. Joe's probably wondering if Frank and Turkey are conspiring against him because Turkey didn't want to put up the money for Joseph Parker to fight Usyk. And word was that he wanted Iturma, another Frank Warren heavyweight, to get the title shot. Iturma, also based in Britain. So we can understand why Joe is a little peed off. The New Zealander is on a great run. Just like Caballero, the German, also signed to Frank Warren, is on a great run. He's nowhere near a title shot with Usyk either. He's got a homecoming fight against... Who's he fighting again? Is it fair what Parker's saying or unfair? Is Frank prioritizing the British guys over the likes of Caballero and Parker? Everything Parker said in his video today I addressed a couple of months ago. The video's in the description box. Fundora pulled out of his light middleweight defense against Keith Thurman, no shock. Fundora's lied previously about injuries to get out of fights. Although it could be a genuine injury. Could be. Keith Thurman must be absolutely seething. They've cancelled the whole card. No Shaki Foster versus Fulton. Some people are debating whether that couldn't have headlined and they could have went ahead with the card. The skeptics are saying no ticket sales without any pay-per-view guarantees from Amazon, coupled with the fact that PBC pays all production costs. It would have been a financial bloodbath. Dave Allen, I picked him to beat MAKHMUDOV, but looking at MAKHMUDOV at the weigh-in, he needs investigating and probing on where the bodies are. Where's he hiding them? I want to change my pick. Nah, just kidding. Let's stick with my pick. That's one scary looking dude. Lima. His last 5 opponents have a combined record of 82 wins, 1 loss. The last defeat was to Aaron McKenna, middleweight prospect who's just come off a career best win beating Liam Smith. And Lima's won his last 4 since. Lima and Boots both look very impressive on the scale, but it's not bodybuilding. I don't think Lima has a good enough jab from what I've seen. He's a southpaw, but not what I would call a tricky southpaw. He falls in after he throws, but he's very physically strong. Throws lots of shots, but Boots, being a Philly fighter, will see that as meat and drink. One could argue Boots does get hit a little too easy. I don't think he's going to stop Lima, but I do think he'll win on points. A wide decision. A lot of people are suggesting that Boots is still tight on the scale despite moving up to 154. Look, it'd probably still be tight on the scale if he moved up to 160. A lot of super welterweights would be tight on the scale even if they moved up to 160. A lot of today's welterweights and super welterweights would still have to work to get down to 168. It would be a lot easier, obviously, but they'd still have to work. It's just a part of boxing, weight making. I wouldn't make a big deal of that. I think it will be a fan-friendly fight. I don't know if Boots is going to get the post-fight reaction from the fans and media that he would like, because I think it could be tougher than what Boots, Bosey, or Eddie Hearn would like.
Boxing beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.